Welcome to Definitely Maybe Agile, the podcast where Peter Madison and David Sherrick discuss the complexities of adopting new ways of working at scale.
Hello, my name is Royce, and I started at the bank, HSBC, with with a bunch of us folks. Did that for a good 10 years. So very heavily in the technology side, the understand the planning side, the release management. I did a lot of innovation. I was always against the grain. I was always looking at how to do things better, right, and more faster and more efficient and adoption. So I led a lot of transformation projects when I was there, which was all fun. Then I moved on to PayPal and then like another a fintech startup. So I wanted to go smaller. I came from enterprise, wanted to go smaller just because it's faster, more innovation, more opportunities to do things. And I think most recently, last year, with AI, I just had to take the opportunity and just start my own business and spend a lot of time on AI because if I had a job, I can only spend a fraction of the time, and everyone's going to have a lot of resistances, and there's going to be a lot of security issues, data issues, just just a lot of that. So that's kind of the career history. So background is a lot in operations, did some sales, did development, and now I am looking at how to use AI in the trade space, right?
So Royce, you and I bumped into one another at the bank, right? HSBC.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, I was just going to call out, you actually did a lot of speeding things up, accelerating things through
Yeah.
there, right? So
Yeah.
you
And
did
I
a
love
ton
the
of things
against
there.
the grain because I mean
Yeah.
that kind of so
Uh,
which you said very early in as you were introducing yourself there, you said that
yeah.
you very much went against the grain, which kind of implied that the rest of the organization had no interest in it sort of improving themselves, which seems a little odd.
I I I wouldn't say it's no interest, but if you worked in a job for so long, you can only see what's in front of you. I think it's more of tunnel vision. Whereas I was only recently diagnosed with ADHD, so that's another perk. But my friends always told me I had it just because like it was just so tedious. The things that we did, it was just very process oriented. It's a bank, right? So everything has to have its checks and balances. And I always ask, like, why do we have to do it this way? Oh, because we always did it this way. And then I started
Yeah.
to dig in more and just to understand, okay, what's the end result we're trying to get to? If it's just this, can't we just simplify and do these things? Obviously, I had my head slapped a lot, but I just did it anyway and just behind the scenes and just told them, oh, hey, I've been saving a lot of time doing this. And then that's kind of how you get the attention. I just do it
Well,
anyway.
yeah, better to beg forgiveness.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right.
And maybe can you just talk a little bit about like the against the grain thing that you're most proud of what you achieved there that sort of stood out?
Oh gosh. Well, at the bank, I think at the bank is probably what started me on a path of being thrown into a lot of transformation projects. I started as a co-op and intern, and the our job was essentially there's two of us was to update a dashboard in Excel, and that was manual. We go talk to project managers all around the world, get the updates and put it in there. And I was just dying from that. It was so tedious, so manual. And I think at the end of my term, I just automated the whole thing. And so I wrote macros, learned macros back then, and then just changed the process. Asked people, hey, can you actually start putting things into the shared drive instead of emailing me back and forth and all of that. So at the end of it, so I automated my job, automated the other co-op's job, and they actually hired me after that. We were in a hiring freeze. This is post 2008. All right. So this is hiring freeze, but I did enough that they wanted to keep me on board. And because of that, every project that was related to transformation was just came my way. And it just did the same thing. I always just broke down what are we trying to do and why are we doing things this way? And just start to just build and design it from there. I
Yeah.
think it just I think most of my career was that, even though I was doing other things as well, but in the background, I was always trying to innovate. Like, how can I make this simpler? How can I collect more data here? And then that led me to building a team in India to do data management and systems.
Mhm.
And I think probably the highlight was the innovation competitions that we had at the bank, where Canada, being a smaller country, we I would like to say because of my contributions to it, Canada won three times in a row. We beat out all the other countries, and that's because of the just innovation, just thinking things differently and poking at things, questioning how we did things. So
there's a sort of a natural like leap from there, what you're just
Right.
describing in terms of big organizations. And I always think of big organizations and spreadsheets, and it's always a surprise, but not a surprise at how many
Right.
critical steps in, say, a software delivery lifecycle, whatever it might be, are still managed through a spreadsheet somewhere buried.
Absolutely.
There's some poor
Yeah.
soul who is collating a bunch of data, producing a spreadsheet from which decisions are made. And of
Right.
course, as we move towards AI enablement, these are exactly these sort of invisible steps that people forget about, which are completely kind of crushing the ability to really take advantage of AI.
Yeah. And I personally like spreadsheets, even though I automate them for the right reasons. And spreadsheets, it's easy to adopt. That's the biggest factor. Is anyone can use it, and it's so flexible. You can use it for any use case. Whereas I've also used a lot of systems. You always have to fight the system to do your job, right? And if you have to fight your system to do your job, then that's a bad system, right? But it's always a balance between how do we make a product that we can scale, right? And then how do we give people control and flexibility? And this is where I think AI is going to be very powerful, because you can have AI spreadsheets. You can have as many spreadsheets as you want, as messy as you want, but AI will make sense of it. You're not going to lose track of things, right? People can work the way they want instead of like jamming them into, no, use this process that we designed for you. No, I don't understand how you do your day-to-day, but this is what the higher ups have said, therefore use it. And I've been a part of some of that, pushing down the tools as well. It's not the greatest experience on any end, but I think AI is really going to create these new opportunities to allow people to do their best work, and align to how they work, but also at the same time standardize and consolidate, transform everything from like my brain into, okay, something Dave understands, something Peter understands, and then something the management understands. And that's where I think there's a lot of excitement, at least for me as well, in this.
There's always a friction between those two different worlds, right? It's the, hey,
Yeah.
I need to have flexibility to be able to go fast, but at the same time,
Right.
The consistency, because we want economies of scale, or we want consistency in data, and how do we ensure that it's correct? Because if we can't necessarily rely on a non-deterministic system to interpret the data and give us back same information. I had one last week where it's like, hey, here's an image of a table. I need you to recreate this. And it got the columns and the rows correct, and then just made up a bunch of crap to go into the table. It's like just completely just came up with something else entirely. And so there's always that piece where, yes, but at scale, if we need reliability, how do we manage these two different worlds as they come together?
Yeah, no, I think that's very, very true. And I would say the dream is everybody works the way they work, but there has to be some sort of guardrails to do that. And I think people are still figuring it out. It's like a lot of things I'm looking at is like, okay, I want people to just send voice notes. Even for myself, I hate updating CRMs. I hate updating project management systems. But I just want to just talk and just say, hey, I did this today, and then go update it. And that's possible now. But as you said, it's not fully freeform. There is what I input, which is unstructured. There are some requirements saying, okay, you must talk about which project, you must like have your update, you must have certain amount of things. So there are easier templates or structure that I think we can give people that's easier to adopt. And then that from there, it can probably infer the rest, saying, oh, you were working on this project, it's probably this one. You mentioned this name, it's probably this, and you grab the rest of the data and put in the updates, right?
Yeah, that imperfect match between the different pieces of information. But here's my scheme. Like, I'm going to fill these in, and here's my confidence level that I got it right.
Exactly. And it's this, I guess, for the both of you, question back at both of you, how have you seen this, and how have you used this in your organizations that you're working with or your own?
I'll let you have a stab at that.
Yeah. So and this is actually just as you were describing that. I feel like one of the key things is, as long as we come at it with a structured, unstructured data view of how to pull that through, and so effectively how to work with the way I work, so I can kind of verbally communicate what I'm thinking and where things go, and then try and turn that unstructured data into structured data, is a bit like the classic problem with user stories, in the sense that if it's only a one-way communication, you're going to end up with structured data which we think is correct but hasn't been validated. And the bit that we're really seeing a lot more success with, if you like, is that validation round where you start with unstructured data, you throw it at whatever you're using to convert to structured data. And as Peter's saying, it comes back and says, okay, I know this, and this. I don't have to ask about it.
Yeah.
Here's 3 questions. Could just clarify, am I thinking about project A or project B, or this piece or that piece? And that little bit of clarification is a lot like in user stories when we have a refinement conversation of, I think I know what your unstructured data is going to translate to in my world.
Sure, yeah.
But let's just validate it. That sort of double loop learning piece, which is totally different to systems where I have to enter data, and either I'm forced to enter it in a structured way, or I enter it and we hope we got to the right structured data. That loop is a really critical one that is beginning to be built into the systems that we're, and the process steps that we're talking about.
It does create a little bit of an interesting piece, though, that if we've got that schema, but even conceptually, the 3 of us who've got something of a background in technology can understand what I mean when I say that. But to somebody who's coming to this totally fresh, they don't necessarily even think that way. That why would I want to do that? What's the benefit to me of doing that, and how does that enable me to start to build a better system? One of the pieces I've been playing with as a thought exercise at the moment is there was this concept around the different roles that people fill in an organization. And so we've got the technologists who do the really complicated stuff, and we've got people who are using AI to create internal websites or to write the Excel macro that's being actually used to make the business decisions versus the actual system that we think is being used to make the business decisions, which is the problem you were describing before. Now there's a piece there where there's a risk view of this, where we think of the person undertaking this, if they're writing a little piece of program that they're just using for their own purposes to take data out of a PDF and upload it into an Excel sheet, that's one thing. If they're then like sharing it with their teammates so they can do the same thing, that's another thing. But at the point that they then want to say give that to the whole department, we from a technologist point of view, we no longer want them just running that off their laptop and sharing it out that way, because if their laptop blows up, all of a sudden that capability disappears. So there's a piece there of helping them through that journey as they move into a higher risk delivery within the technology system. And I think AI sort of starts to allow the crossing of those boundaries in different ways, which I think becomes interesting.
Yeah, definitely. As soon as obviously AI in itself has so many variables that you cannot control, and you try your best to control it. And so if it works for one person, as soon as you add another person, well, it's a whole new set of variables because they use it differently that complicates things. I definitely see that challenge. And I do agree that the type of skill set required to effectively deploy AI solutions, I would say that's different than what most people are used to. And I feel that is lacking, especially in small organizations where they've never seen what systems look like at scale. They just know, okay, I'm just running my business. And I've just encountered a lot of individuals as well. They still think, oh, AI is a tool. Right? As long as I bring it in and people start using it, that's a win, right? Well, yeah, sure. Okay, you can use it as a glorified spell checker and writing tool, but you're not actually going to reach the true transformation of AI and really adopt it unless you really understand operations and how your organization works. And again, what's your end goal? What are you trying to achieve? Curious. Yeah.
What you're describing there, I just think one of the distractions that you often get in these conversations is this focus on standing operating procedure. Yes. So because one of the things, and you described it really well, everybody using, interacting with some form of AI tool or product is going to create different variables. And so the magic is not standard operating procedures, which you don't need non-deterministic systems to do. They're standard, and therefore they're deterministic, and therefore why are we worried about AI being into there? But we can make something that's a much more powerful, because it can respond to Royce's needs in a different way than it responds to Peter's needs, in a different way that it responds to Dave's needs, but all within the constraints of what is it we're trying to achieve. And that variation is not about value stream mapping and SDLCs and standard operating procedures. It's about really understanding what the operations are and what the variables, where we can explore with that.
Yeah, and I came with I think during one of my meetups I brought it up. I came with an acronym, just MIND. It's just mind, right? And the first one I put in there is for M is everyone is a manager, right? Because everyone needs to think like a manager. You don't manage a tool, you manage the outcomes. And I believe if you want to be very successful with AI, just as you said, you can't just give people, this is what you do. But no, like we have to teach them how to think like managers. This is the end goal that we're all aligned to, right? And that's normally what organizations do as you move up to become managers, directors, VPs. Everyone is less and less structured. They don't have an SOP to do their jobs. They just have, okay, that's the goal we're trying to hit. That's the target we're trying to hit. Okay, I'll figure out as long as we hit that. And this is where I feel there's a gap often where you're giving the low-level employees, here's the AI tool, but you don't teach them how to think like management or how to align themselves with the strategies. It's just, oh, use it, do your work faster and do it better. Well, okay, they want operating procedures because they are order takers. You've trained them to be order takers, but that's not the best of how AI works. So if you actually teach them how to be managers, how to think about, okay, find your own way to get this result. Here's the tool that helps you do that. And then I think there's going to be a lot more successful use cases. And again, this helps adapt to those variations to one person to another. Right? But as long as we're all running towards the same direction, we all know the guardrails, the rules, then that's it. Then go at it, right?
I'm going to ask what the IN and the N and
I
the
was
D
about to
are.
ask the same thing.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Right. Since I brought it up, MIND is first, anyone's a manager, so it's just the mindset of training how people should use AI. Second one is integration. I often people ask me like, oh, what tool should I use? What tool should I use? I'm like, okay, you're gonna have all these gurus online that says subscribe to these 15 different tools and you're gonna be an AI expert. And I would go advise against that always because the power of AI is to have all your data in one place, right? And people tend to silo all of their data because, oh, I'm gonna put this here, I'm gonna put that there, I'm gonna put that there. So just integrating all of your data, making sure you use one ecosystem. So I hardly ever deviate from Google, right? So I use Google Workspace. I try to use all of their AI tools because it only gets better. I was tempted to get one of those, oh, this summarizes your emails and does all these things. It's a very fancy tool. Okay, well, Google just launched it and it's in there now. I'm already paying for it. Why do I want to manage another subscription and just like manage security and all of these things? So I do see a lot of, I guess, small business owners where the ones that do adopt AI, it becomes very complex for them to manage. They just subscribe left and right, and then a whole bunch of things become abandoned. So that's where I is just integration, just use one. N is new data. This is a new way of thinking about your operations. It's that we don't often collect all the data that is available to us. Right? So meetings, for example, okay, we can record it now. We have summaries. Okay, we can use that for AI. But what about in-person conversations, right? Do you record those? When you have in-person meetings, do you record those? That's an opportunity for you to gather information as well, right? And then I can simply put a phone on, turn on a meeting, and just start recording it as well. So it's just a way of thinking about how can your existing process today create new data for you to use in your operations, right? And I've done this a couple of times where that data set that was never collected before because if you were to do it as a human, it's really tedious. But once you automate it and at scale, okay, it becomes very valuable. And this is like a call information, for example, like what did people say on calls? What are they interested in? This creates a whole bunch of information that previously we didn't capture or use, but now we can see, oh, these people are interested in this. We actually had upsell opportunities here on these support calls that we never thought about. So just doing that and just create this new set of data, I think it has to be the new mindset of everyone is how do I design my operations so it generates data? And then the last one, D, I put division by design. And this is where everyone puts AI to solve human processes. So this is how I do it as a human. Okay, I'm going to try to throw AI on top of it and have the AI do it. But that's, I would say, is doing a disservice to AI because now you're limiting AI to work like a human. Whereas if there's a process you look at, oh, this can actually be redesigned to take advantage of the speed of AI, the context of AI, it can actually read a lot more information. So then redesigning processes to actually work better with AI is the last one. So these are just different little tips and tricks I've learned over the, I guess, year and a half of just diving into it, and plus just experience with that transformation and seeing what works and what doesn't work. But that's just a lot of me talking. I'll hand it over to you guys for your thoughts and comments.
Go on, Peter. Jump in.
Well, I think it's a good use of an acronym.
Yeah,
I like the perspective that you're providing there, and I agree. There's an interesting piece around the manager part that you mentioned at the start there as well. That's what the Agile transformation was trying to do for the last 20 years, create autonomy within teams so the teams could actually act and operate autonomously, which also, of course, required the systems that they were working with to allow them to be able to do that, which was often one of the big drawbacks. But we can start to see some of the light at the end of the tunnel with how that's sort of the AI is starting to accelerate that journey. And I agree with your integration and new data and points as well. The division by design, I think, is one where people do struggle a lot. Is that there's that mindset shift of how do I rethink the approach to this problem, especially where we started the conversation about, well, that's how we've always done things here. This is even doubly a problem when it's now I've got a tool set which enables me to completely rethink how things were always done here. And so that does put you in a very different spot.
Well, it's an innovation problem, isn't it? And a lot of people automatically chop that off. So, I talk to people all the time who say they're not creative, they're not very good at innovation and so on, even though actually they have loads of creativity and innovative kind of experience, but they automatically don't think about that. And to your point, it's now becomes the way we've done it yesterday is the way we need to do it now. So we're going to automate that, which just means you've missed the opportunity, right? It isn't just optimization. It's not just about automating the process that we're using. It's really rethinking, Royce, as you said, the new data, what things can you learn from data that is relevant to the business, that's available, but maybe hasn't been captured or hasn't been processed before, just as an example of that division of, again, there's more and more some really interesting kind of conversations going on about what exactly are we experts in that the AI systems are never going to be able to, or at least currently, we're not going to be able to cover, and it's a lot of the emotional, the interactions. I always think of body language, reading body language. Yes, there's probably something around that, but it's not commercial right now, right?
No, I think and I do have some sympathy for people in these situations thinking about this, because the hardest part of transformation projects that I've done is you have to do your day job. You still have to keep the business running, and then you have to like step back and look at the process from the side, and it's doing something that they've never done before, right? So it's working on the business, working on the processes instead of in it, and that's not something people are normally taught. They're just, hey, do this is the end result. So there is a big challenge there. So this is where coming from an external does help. External point of view, you're able to ask and poke on all these questions, but then the challenge is like, okay, you don't have context, you don't understand what they're trying to do, right? So I do think people who are in operations that understands how things are done and why things are done are going to be very important. I think AI will supercharge them, because they're the ones that, okay, if you can pull them out of the operations and now just give them the tools, and their only job now is to think about what you're trying to achieve and what can you eliminate, what can you no longer need to do, and use AI instead.
Can you, Royce, just talk a little bit about what you're looking for when you talked a little bit, you hinted at working in trades or working closely with the trades. You've been doing some exploration in terms of AI and process automation and so on. What is it that you really look for? What are you seeing?
Well, I spent a year just exploring, just talking with different types of business owners, different types of industries. And I think for myself, I actually started in trades a long time ago, but the wait list for the programs were over 2 years. So I just did something else. So this is where it's just my friend that I grew up with. He has like an HVAC company, so I'm just helping him out on that space. But I do feel what I'm looking for right now, where I am looking at AI, and my goal is to build a SaaS product that doesn't get killed the next time a ChatGPT, OpenAI, or Google releases something new. So I'm looking for those opportunities. So I'm looking at processes, operations, and in the physical world, right? So the digital side, any desk job, like all of those are kind of saturated. Everyone has tools, everyone has something. But when it comes to the real world, a physical world side, there's still a lot of opportunity there, right? There's still a lot of conversations that's not being captured. Still, certain things that's being missed. So I'm looking at how can we actually use AI to simplify these new processes, or to give them a new way of working that they've never thought about before in the more traditional spaces that gives them ability to capture data, and it gives them these like advantages later on that this opens new doors to opportunities, right? So hopefully that answers that. So it's trades is an interesting space for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot going on there, and it's certainly that space where often it tends to be lots of small individuals as well. And
right.
So how do you help them? They tend to not be as tech savvy in general.
Yeah. So and that's a challenge. That's a hard thing. It's they're not tech savvy. They're very fragmented. They don't like to learn new things. So then if you, I think selling to them would always have been hard. It's hard to reach them. It's hard to get them to adopt because you have to learn this new UI. You have to learn this process. You have to build this process. And they don't want to do that. They just want to do their work, right? So even before this, even at the previous companies I've looked at, and from the bank, I've learned to look at how do I not change your day-to-day, but bolt on processes so it feels invisible, right? So if we can actually do that for a lot of these traditional spaces where they're creating data, capturing information without even knowing it, I think that's the best experience. So like the best UI is no UI at all, right? So whatever is their day-to-day, that should be what we should target. And I think AI opens those doors and makes that possible now.
How do you, I mean, there's a kind of immediate, we talked briefly about AI and things like, well, governance, security, things.
Right.
So if I step into trades and try and think about, no UI is the best one. So conversational, something there. There's a ton of information that can be picked up, which should be protected, right? So how do you solve that if you see it?
I think there's a lot of research that needs to be done, and it depends on how you want to do it. You can say, oh, just slap a camera on, record everything. Okay, lots of problems with that, right? But I believe depending on where you are, what it is, like for certain conversations, apparently you can record conversations as long as one party agrees. Don't quote me on that. That's something I read, but I at least for myself right now, I'm looking for like safer opportunities, getting everyone to buy in to do these things. But a lot of those problems come at scale. And when I was at the bank, I forgot where I did some of these projects where a lot of innovation is killed by the thought of, oh, we have all of these rules, therefore I'm not going to try at all. But if you never try, you never really understand, okay, what rules are actually the hard rules? Which ones are actually negotiable? Which ones will change by the time I actually get there? And you'll see that a lot of rules are changing now. They are becoming more open. Even for financials, it's like the open banking was a no-go, right? But okay, now we're actually open to it, right? We're open to giving people data. So I would start anyway and there's so many problems to solve. Like, okay, we know what that problem is. There's a whole bunch of unknowns. I'm going to solve those ones first and then negotiate for those security ones. Because there's always ways around it. Okay, put things on Canadian servers, get people to sign agreements in place. There are ways around it, but I don't think it should be a roadblock for a lot of these, because as soon as you start to create it and create value for the individuals, all parties involved, they may want that value enough to be like, okay, I'm okay with you taking this information. That's how I would look at it.
I think that's a fair point. There's plenty of opportunities out there for sure, and looking at not letting the current constraints of the system get in the way.
Yeah,
as we were touching on a little bit earlier, it did remind me of the parable that goes with that. Of course, is Chesterton's fences. The concept of you don't tear down something that you don't fully understand.
Right.
So
okay.
There is a piece of the idea being that if you come across a fence in the middle of a field, and there's no apparent reason why there's a fence in the middle of this field, but there might be a very, very good reason that is there. So until you understand why it's there, don't go just knocking it down for the sake of it, because that can cause problems too.
Yeah. Or like, well, Elon Musk removes first and like, oh, okay, I actually need to put it
Oh,
back.
yeah, maybe that wasn't such a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, all sorts of bad things happen. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Sure.
I think there's like the risk and reward. There's if you feel like okay, there's not much risk, not much issues here, like okay, try it out, turn it off for like a week, see what happens.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that what's important, what you're talking about, Royce, is small scale, right? If you're dealing with, a single provider or smaller, then
Right.
there is that risk is again reduced. But if you're dealing with, say, province-wide something or other, that's a totally different conversation.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Understanding risk is key.
Yeah. And I guess because I'm in the startup world now, it's always about de-risking. So there's 101 problems, all right, and probably 100 more that are not known. So if you already know that these are security problems, okay, just table that for now and just solve the other ones, figure out all the rest first. And I've seen companies, I think of those medical companies, and those high risk companies, they start not in US, not in Canada. There's too many rules here. They start in like other countries, figure it out, get the tech right, get the usability right. Okay, now let's start hardening it and let's start changing it for the current market. So there's a lot of ways to go around it, and I think that's the beauty of innovation and startups and the fun part of it, but also the challenge. Right.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like we want to head towards our 3 points that we want to summarize.
Yes, I think so. So if we want to wrap this up with a nice tidy little bow on top of it, and so we each get a point for our audience to take away, and Royce, as our guest, you get to go first. So what point would you like our audience to take away from this conversation?
I would say the one that I find most effective is the everyone is a manager mindset. It's think of AI as a new type of employee. They're good at certain things or bad at certain things. So you should design your jobs and roles accordingly, right? You want to set AI up for success, just like you set up your own staff for success, right? That would be my point there.
Yeah. Dave, what do you want to?
I was going to go with the manager one as well, but I'll find something else. So, so I think I'm going to touch on what you were just mentioning at the end, Peter, which is we've often talked about risk, and we've often referenced the fact that actually everything comes back to risk in many conversations that we've had around transformation. And I think, again, we've just seen exactly the same thing, which is it isn't a case of trying to follow all the rules that are there, but really understanding what's behind them. And from a risk perspective, trying to test some of those boundaries and see what you can really kind of what you can work around or safely bypass, and what fences have to be kept.
I think that's a good one too. I think for me, I liked there was a lot of good stuff in. I think there was a lot of stuff around innovation, how we approach different problems. I think there's a piece there around ensuring that we're not just bringing in the tool sets for the sake of bringing them in, understanding what are we trying to achieve, what is the outcome we're looking for, so that we can understand are we actually achieving it, because that's an awful lot of what we're seeing at the moment is, oh look, we got AI, yay, but we're not seeing the outcomes that we would like out of this, and I think all of it does tie back to some of what we've also been touching on, which it's hard to step outside the system and look at it and start to make changes, say, actually, which of these bits do we really need and which bits of these can we easily change? And it often takes somebody else coming and looking at it for you to figure some of that. Okay, so with that, I'd like to thank you, Royce. A great conversation, and thank you, Dave, as always. And we will welcome everyone to reach out at feedback@definitelymaybeagile.com, and don't forget to hit subscribe.
Brilliant. Thanks again, Royce.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Definitely Maybe Agile, the podcast where your hosts, Peter Madison and David Sharrock, focus on the art and science of digital, agile, and DevOps at scale.